I left off where my father, Billy Jean, threw his napkin in his plate and said, "I ain't eating this shit. I'm going to the McDonald's." And you hear his tires screeching down the road. So that night after dinner, I went out to the shed and checked on the bird. Its cries of outrage and incredulousness at its condition had stilled, replaced with a sort of luminous solar solemnity that engraved its suffering with a grandeur whose inklings made me feel chilly inside, like the very first autumnal wind of the season. I'd cut up the earthworms and I looked down into the bottom of the Senka can at the pieces. My stomach had never been strong. There's an odor to worms as there's an odor to potato bins and sinks with old pipes. I breathed in that odor and something stirred in me, the odor having penetrated some deep nucleus or kernel within me, as deep inside me as my own kidneys or the corpus callosum joining together the two hemispheres of my brain. The next day I found the baby bird dead in a vomit of sawdust and chopped up earthworm. I went to supper that night feeling unwell. A visceral discomfort had settled over me. My mother sat beside me as she always did at the dinner table. If ever in the course of the meal I were to make a mistake with my table manners, she would poke my thigh under the table with her fork. We were having fried okra for dinner. I looked at the okra. Its exotic biology called to my existence. My mother put a piece of cornbread on my plate. It was the thin, crunchy, unsweet, very dry cornbread of northeast Mississippi. When I failed to eat immediately, my father, Billy Jean's, eyes fell on me. Without wanting to, I took a bite of cornbread and began to chew. The cornbread was dry, and I had taken an unusually large bite, nervous as I was around my old man. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an idea, a flash, an intuition of something, a funk piece of imagination shot through my brain. A recollection of the smell of that Sanka can with its mash of chopped up earthworms in the bottom. And then, like a lone arrow of nausea lancing my body, a vision of chopped up earthworm pieces and the cornbread I was eating exploded in my consciousness. Leaping up from my seat, I began gagging uncontrollably, my eyes wild with horror, my back burning with my father's gaze as he watched me doubled over, the cornbread in my mouth, gagging and choking. "God bless if you people don't beat all I ever seen," he said as I finally swallowed what I had in my mouth and turned to him with tears going down my face. Then it was as if something on his dinner plate had called to him. His gaze locked on the fried okra on his plate. That same quizzical, slightly pained, subtly vexed expression came over his face, twisting its doughy mass into a look pinched, puzzled, ugly, capricious. Some idea, something ugly and whimsical, had flashed through his consciousness. In a dramatic gesture, he threw his napkin onto his plate and stood up. "I ain't eating this shit," he roared. "I'm going to the McDonald's." That night I lay in the bottom bunk of the bunk bed I shared with my older brother. Very late at night, while everyone else in the house was asleep, there was some gauze that covered the bottom half of the bed above me that had ripped, and it hung down like dead skin. On the wooden slats of the bed, my brothers had scrawled messages in pencil. I had, and still have, a way of seeing myself, my face, in great detail, without a mirror or a reflective surface of any kind. I see it in my mind. As I lay there, I looked into this interior mirror whose reflective surface was composed of the frozen whorl of consciousness in stillborn wave and arrested motion. There, in the dark, staring up at the bottom of the bed above me, at that gauze so much like the tattered flesh of the melted men I'd seen in the movies about the atomic bomb, I could see with tremendous lucidity that my eyes had taken on that expression of remote outrage, of an incredulousness on the order of the fundamental, which the baby bird had possessed in that tiny crevice of existence in the world of the shed where the machine sat lewd and subdued in sullen meditation, while the astrological cycles spun in astral centrifugal loops around us, and like two people who find themselves for a short time sitting in their respective trains on parallel tracks, facing in opposite directions at the station waiting to move, the one about to head one way, the other that, and who look at each other with a tender longing and a deep sympathy, as if the riddle of their being had been untangled by this one shared glance, only to have the train start up, wrenching the two of them away from each other forever. In like manner did the baby bird and I, having rendezvoused in the dark lagoon of acid circumstance, in a world of profligate careen and volley, strike that same pose of crushed tenderness and diabolical hope in holy elopement with the unknown. If you dig this kind of thing, dig that content, please hit the like and subscribe button. I appreciate it.